Hello and welcome, my friends. I almost didn't do this broadcast today. Do me a favor, if you're tuning in live, please just post a thumbs up that you can hear me. I'm looking at my Whoops, I think I was on mute. See, that it just happened so quickly. So I just want to kind of repeat that. Yesterday, I posted on my YouTube community page, letting everyone know I wasn't feeling well, and what I may need to do is cancel the episode today. So in the past, I might have really pushed through that and done the episode anyway. But what I am continuing to learn, and what I really want this space to represent, is that healing often begins when we stop overriding the body, because sometimes the body isn't failing. Sometimes the body is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Welcome back to the Healing Inquiry. I'm Christina Sergun Powers, and this space is really about exploration and about asking deeper questions, reconnecting with the body, and learning how to work with the body instead of against it. And today's conversation actually unfolded very organically from my own experience this week, because I was planning to continue our discussion on food as medicine, specifically the 6 tastes of Ayurveda. But what happened yesterday became part of the teaching itself. And I think that's important, because healing isn't theoretical, it's lived, it's moment to moment awareness, it's learning to listen to the body. Yesterday, I felt nauseous, achy, low energy, no appetite, chills in the body. And immediately, I intuitively knew my body was processing something. The weather had a dramatic shift. It was warm one day this week, and then cold the next, and then warm again. It was warmer this morning, and now it's cold. My body does much better in consistently warm temperature. So I checked my temperature yesterday, and technically it was normal at 98.4, but for me, that actually feels like a low-grade fever. And what I did notice was, instead of trying to force myself into being productive, instead of immediately reaching for supplements, herbs, or medications, I rested, I hydrated, I slept, I listened to my body. And this morning I woke up feeling restored, clear, energized again, as you see me right now. Sometimes healing is not about doing more. Sometimes healing is allowing the body to do what it already knows how to do. And I think this is something we've really lost in our modern culture. We've become uncomfortable with slowing down, uncomfortable with having symptoms, uncomfortable with rest. But symptoms are often communication. The immune system creating heat in the body, fatigue, feeling this detoxification, achy feeling, appetite changes, detoxification processing, can actually be signs the body is functioning intelligently. And sometimes what's needed most is not intervention, but support. I also wanted to share a couple small healing updates for me with you, because that's what this whole series is about. Last week, my dear friend and colleague Sabini Sayan, who was on last week's episode, reminded me about using cabbage leaves on the breast tissue. And interestingly, this was something I had consistently been doing on my healing journey since last fall. So I started incorporating that again this week, and I've already noticed the heaviness and achiness I started feeling had significantly dissipated. And today I'm also doing my very first hyperbaric chamber session. It's completely new to me, this type of healing modality, but it's something I've studied and heard about from practitioners and researchers that I deeply respect. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy works by increasing oxygen availability in the tissues and cells of the body. And what's fascinating about this is that cancer cells do not thrive well in oxygen-rich environments. Many people use this therapy alongside alternative healing approaches, which is my path, or after chemotherapy and radiation to help restore cellular health. So I'll definitely share more about that experience in future episodes. Healing requires curiosity. Sometimes we have to stay open to new modalities while still trusting the body's own intelligence. But all of this actually connects beautifully to today's topic, the 6 tastes in Ayurveda. Because food is not just calories, it's not just protein, carbs, and fats, which is what our modern culture thinks of food as when we're thinking eating healthy. Food carries qualities, food carries energy, food communicates with the body. And Ayurveda teaches that every meal should ideally include all 6 tastes, because each taste creates a different effect physically, mentally, and emotionally. And there's a different ratio of the taste. You would not have the equal amounts of all tastes. And that also depends on the constitution of the body. And I'll talk about that, the imbalances or symptoms that are showing up in the body, and of course the season. And I'll give you a little bit of taste of that as we discuss each of the 6 tastes today. Just going to check in with the chat, reminding you, if you're live, please post questions you have in the chat. I'm eyeing it, paying attention to it. And I love answering questions live. If you're on the replay, please go ahead and post your questions or comments in the comments. I read them and I respond to them all. So let's start off with the sweet taste. The sweet taste is the most nourishing of all the tastes. It helps to build our tissues, calm the nervous system, hydrate the body, create stability in the body and the mind. And this is important because Ayurveda, sweet does not just mean processed sugar, which is what our modern culture thinking associates it with. Sweet includes foods, grains, rice, dairy, sweet fruits like bananas and mangoes, those types of fruits, berries, nuts, quality meats are all considered the sweet taste because they build tissue in the body. The sweet taste builds what Ayurveda calls ojas. This is our deep vitality, our immunity, and our resilience. So as you understand, that is what is critical. That is what we need to have a strong, healthy immune system, energy, vitality in the body. But excess sweets, remember, it's always a balance, especially processed sweet foods, can weaken the digestive system and create stagnation in the body. So even nourishing foods need proper digestion support. So even if it was high quality nuts, high quality meats, high quality grains, if there was excess amounts of those, it would create the same weakened digestion and stagnation in the body. So for example, warming milk with cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg helps the body digest it more effectively. And interestingly enough, this is why things like golden milk and turmeric lattes have become so popular, because the wisdom is that's how the body is nourished, is it's warmed and it's spiced. One of the things, and I rarely say this, of what to avoid and what to cut out of your diet is cold milk with cereal. This is the most highly sugar impacted food that you can eat at the wrong time of day. in fact, there is no real time of day to drink the cold milk, because it's like throwing a wet, damp towel on a fire. It's completely putting out the digestive fire. And so this is, oddly enough, what is very enculturated in our modern, particularly Western culture of eating breakfast. And all it does is it dampens and it creates this very thick, heaviness in the body, and it really sets our body up for having chronic diseases, chronic colds, chronic infections. So let's move on to the sour taste. The sour taste helps stimulate digestion. It increases the circulation in the blood. It awakens the appetite. So we kind of say it ignites the appetite. It stabilizes the digestive fire. So it creates a strong, continued digestive fire that's not going up and down. And examples of the types of foods that have that sour taste are the citrus fruits, tomatoes, yogurt, vinegar, fermented foods, tempeh. Those are just some examples. And for people with what we call in Ayurveda a vata imbalance, that's V-A-T-A, the sour taste can be incredibly grounding and supportive. But for individuals who have what we call pitta imbalance, or excess heat and inflammation in the body, intensity in the mind, there's too much sour taste will increase this imbalance. So interestingly enough, what brings us out of balance is the very type of food that people crave. So typically people who have excess heat in the body, intensity in the mind, do crave that sour taste. And so you would want to reduce that. When we talk about, I mentioned the vata imbalance, what that looks like in the mind is high propensity toward feeling anxious, feeling worried, feeling fearful, feeling overwhelmed, feeling confused. And in the body, coldness in the feet, in the hands, digestive imbalance of gas or bloating, constipation, or variation back and forth of constipation, diarrhea. Is a very strong vata imbalance. And so that's when you would want to have more of that sour taste to support those imbalances. Too much of the sour taste can sometimes contribute to irritability in the mind, irritability in the body, sharpness in the language and the tongue, reactive communications. And that's always kind of connected with someone who has that high intensity of the mind, high heat in the body, high sweating capacity, which I find fascinating. Ayurveda teaches that food affects not only the body, but also the mind and the emotions. So again, don't hesitate to pop in your questions in the chat if you have something that comes up about sweet and sour taste. We're going to move into the next taste, which is salty. The salty taste, it hydrates, it grounds, it nourishes, it supports the nervous system. And this was especially interesting to me in my studies, because Ayurveda actually recognizes that the salty taste can help regulate anxiety. And if anyone has ever worked with animals, particularly horses, there's something called a salt lick. So when you have a horse that has high anxiety, nervous condition, they have these salt licks, and that immediately, it's like first aid to that anxiety feeling, is it brings that down and balances. The same thing with humans. So a small amount of salt during a panic attack response, it helps to stabilize that nervous system immediately. So examples of salt in foods are sea salts, of course, the mineralized salts, the pink salts, the black salts. Celtic gray sea salt is one of my favorite. Olives, seaweed, miso, seafoods, and the hard cheeses. But again, balance matters. It's critical. Too much salt eventually creates dryness and depletion. And I think this is where we can really begin seeing that healing is rarely about extremes. It's about balance, it's about rhythm, it's about awareness. Often people do not understand that salt is what hydrates the body. It's very key, and we have taken that out of a lot of our food sources, a lot of our Diets will say, low salt and no salt, but it's the type of salt we're eating, which is not mineralized salt. And understanding that this is really what our cells need to hydrate. So let's go to the next taste, which is pungent taste. The pungent taste is heating, it's stimulating, it's cleansing, it's energizing. And examples of this are garlic, onions, ginger, chili peppers, black peppers. And honestly, this is one of the tastes I realized my body needed much more of. It was lacking in my diet as I started my healing plan, especially with the current diagnosis that I have. The pungent taste helps to burn ama, or toxicity, in the body. It increases the blood circulation. It clears mucus and stagnation in the body, and it stimulates our metabolism. But too much pungent food can also become depleting. It can dry the tissues, weaken the respiratory system, increase heat and inflammation. So again, it's always about working with your body, not following generalized rules. And possibly this is what I might have been experiencing yesterday. Maybe I had too much onions in my food, maybe too much garlic, maybe too much of the pungent herbs. And it was kind of adding to that depletion. So I listened to the body. The body clearly needed to rest. I didn't have an appetite, so I had not really eating very much and did not continue with the herbs. Even healthy foods can create imbalances when they're not aligned with the body. So now let's come to the bitter taste. The bitter taste is deeply cleansing. It is the most cleansing. It supports detoxification, liver function, blood purification, and reducing excess heat in the body. So as I talked before about that pitta condition, that pitta imbalance, where we have excess heat in the body, which shows up as excess sweating, excess intensity of the mind. This is what that type of body needs more of. And in my case, with my current symptoms, I am doing detoxification pretty much daily and working with the liver function. So it's very supportive for that process. Examples of the types of bitter is in kale, dandelion greens, chard, arugula, dark leafy greens. And what I find interesting is that in the particular area I live, what is abundant and naturally growing are dandelions in every yard. And that's what people really work hard to get rid of. It is the most potent medicine for the liver, for detoxification, that we have, from the roots to the leaves to the flowers. And it is something that can be really potent in everybody's diet. And I don't suggest that somebody go out and start foraging their own dandelions if they don't understand what the soil content is and that it's not toxic. But if you are working to detoxify your lawn and your yard, it is a most potent and wonderful medicine. But understanding that too much bitter taste can become ungrounding, and psychologically, Ayurveda can associate such bitterness with dissatisfaction, fear, or emotional depletion, which again, it reminds us food affects far more than just physical chemistry. And again, what's interesting, I keep reusing that word, but what's fascinating is that people tend toward the very food that pushes them out of balance. So someone who has that vata imbalance, let's say they have thinner body structure, they tend toward a dryness in the body, coldness in the feet and hands. In the mind, they have higher propensity to have anxiousness, fear, worry, doubt, confusion, and that kind of is very it's like a loop that comes up daily. Those are the very type of individuals that lean into the bitter taste, the salads, the juices, and in an excessive way. And so that bitterness, that coldness is pushing them more out of balance. What they really need is more sweet, sour, and salty taste. And that's what will balance and bring that nervous system and build up the tissues in the body, build up the immune system, build up the vitality. Okay, let's come and talk about the astringent taste. The astringent taste has a drying and tightening quality. So examples of this would be teas, black teas, green teas, beans, the legumes, cranberries, pomegranate, which why when we have UTIs, those are very, very beneficial because it has that astringent quality of drying up. Cruciferous vegetables, the broccolis, the cauliflowers, mushrooms. If you've ever had red wine or a strong tea and felt that dry sensation of the mouth, that is the astringent quality. I think this quality of taste is what's most kind of removed from people's consciousness, but we have it in our foods and quite commonly in our diets. So what this taste helps is it tonifies the tissues. So that pulling in, it makes those tissues very toned. It's also when we talk about, you commonly probably heard astringent associated with skincare products. It tonifies and tightens up that skin. And when we eat these types of foods, that's the very thing that it does to the tissues in the body. It reduces excess secretion. So we have heavy mucus in the body, heavier, much more excessive sweating or mucus coming from coughing or any other orifices that excrete the mucuses. It helps to dry that up in a balanced way, supporting healing and tightening the body within. But too much can create stiffness, dryness, constriction. And once again, Ayurveda always brings us back to balance. So again, someone who has that vata imbalance, the coldness in the feet and hands, dryness in the body, dryness on the skin, tendency toward anxiety, worry, fear, doubt, they are gravitated toward those astringent foods, and it creates more of this stiffness in the body, this constricting feeling, and more of that out of balance anxiety in the mind. Again, what they need, sweet, salt, and sour taste, more of that. So not completely taking out astringent, not completely taking out bitter or pungent. The balance for them needs to be more heavier on the sweet, salty, and sour, and less on the astringent, bitter, and pungent, but not completely depleting it from the body altogether. That's what balance means. So I'm just going to take a moment. I feel like I've been talking quite rapidly today. I'm very excited about this topic. Of course, I'm very excited to feel my energy and vitality returned from how I was feeling yesterday. So I just kind of want to slow down a minute and give you a chance to pop any current questions from this topic today of these six tastes. What I love about Ayurveda is that it teaches us to become observers, to stop and think in terms of good foods or bad foods, and stop thinking in that way. Instead, ask the questions: what quality is this food creating in my body? We don't think of food as good or bad in Ayurveda. It's what's the quality, what is the message, what does my body need more of, what does it need less of? Because healing, it's not one size fits all. And honestly, that's what this entire week reminded me of. Yesterday, my body did not need more stimulation. It needed rest. It needed hydration, stillness, and listening to it. Today, I feel stronger because I honored that. The body is constantly communicating. Healing begins when we start listening. Thank you all so much for being here with me today. And if you're on the replay, thank you for tuning in. If this conversation resonated with you, like the video. It helps it get out there and to reach more people who are looking for this type of information. Subscribe to the channel so you get the notifications. I'm here weekly, and it helps you to tune into what the topics are, and share it with someone who you know could benefit from this message today. If you're watching live, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. Which of the 6 tastes do you think your body craves most right now? Or if you're watching the replay, share your thoughts in the comments. I truly enjoy reading them all, and I respond to them all. Next week, I'm very excited because I'll be joined by Tina Thornton, an integrative health coach, a colleague, and a very dear friend of mine. And we're going to continue exploring the relationship between food, energy, healing, and the body's natural intelligence. I think it's going to be a really beautiful conversation. I call her an angel. And so lots of different things come into the conversation. She and I have experienced lots of different podcasts together, and she brings a whole element, a lovely healing element and vibration. And remember, healing is not always about fighting the body. Sometimes it's about finding and learning how to listen to it. I'll see you next Friday at 11 a.m. Central Time.